It's Friday, May 5th, 2023. Start with our normal shill segment as we always do. I don't know why I've started talking. Maybe it's the caffeine because I drank an energy drink that's really good. Not a stupid monster type energy drink, an actual sugar-free. That stuff I'm convinced is poison.
They're all poison.
There's ones that have the all. I mean, don't get me wrong, nothing's all natural, but they are certainly ones that are geared more towards a healthy way of doing things and more of a, oh, do you love BMX bikes that explode through flames jumping off buildings? Monster! Or whatever. Anyhow, patreon.com/Ozone Nightmare is where you can go to support the show through the Patreon platform. You can go to the show homepage and you will see links on the side. One will look like a squat book with a bookmark because it's not the correct aspect ratio for a book. It looks like a square book. That will take you to Lando's Amazon author page. There's also a PayPal icon, the old double P, one of the many Silicon Valley-inspired logos of the era. That will take you to a PayPal donation link. And every show in the show notes has a Linktree for me where you can go and look at the various stuff that I do artistically. I don't think there's anything else that's the whole shill segment. There will be a new show that I will be doing with Len Kabaczynski about a movie called U.S. SEALs 2.
Oh, God.
Which you should see. I'm not going to say any more about it. I'll save the rest of it for that. But oh boy, oh boy, I'm not going to even review it. I'm not going to say anything else about it on the show because I'm going to save it all for that because there's lots to say. And that's it as far as promo. OZONE, that promo code, as far as I know, still active. Still will allow you to get 2 months free on Libsyn if you want to spend almost 20 years talking about nothing the way we have. So enjoy. Lando, take it away.
Is that how you describe this?
That's charitable.
So, kind of a weird 80s movie thing I just wanted to start with because I had some weird experiences with old movies. So, first I'll start with kind of the negative. So I was trying to find Bachelor Party the other day. You know the Tom Hanks movie Bachelor Party?
Oh, yeah. I haven't seen it forever, but yeah, it's one of those you remember most of it type movies.
I couldn't find it anywhere.
Really?
Yeah, I couldn't find it to buy. I couldn't find it to rent.
It is on Starz.
Is it?
And yeah. Starz apparently is the only place that currently has it. So you would have to do at least a trial subscription to Starz.
Okay. So I couldn't find it when I was looking. So it's only there. So it's you know how we're like, well, every movie's accessible. Apparently you need a Starz account to watch that. Another one was I went looking for, remember that movie, The Eliminators?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Yeah. That's another one I had trouble finding.
That one was, now it may have gone off.
I thought it was on YouTube, but it wasn't.
Well, hold on.
I found all the trailers for it. I found clips from it.
Is that 82 or what? What year is that?
I think it might be 82, The Eliminators.
Let me look at that. That's a great movie. I actually say 86. 86.
There you go.
Let's take a look because that one I think was on YouTube. I think you're right.
Couldn't find it on Amazon.
Yeah. Oh no, that's an hour and something long review. Hold on, let me see if
and
I
then
can
I
tell
went
you what
on
that is.
YouTube, and no one had posted it.
No, I was able to find that through alternate channels, so that is on my Plex server.
There you go. Right. So, but those are two movies from the '80s, two great movies from the '80s that are not easily. I mean, one is not accessible right now.
Eliminators
The other one
is nowhere, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, and then Bachelor Party, which you'd expect that movie would be everywhere for like nothing. Only get it on Stars, right? So
yeah, that's one of those where I don't feel like that one would.
I thought that would be on Netflix.
Yeah,
at least.
Well, I would. That's one I would think would be on probably Netflix and Amazon, frankly, because that's kind of a. Yeah. I mean, I don't think anybody brings it up as one of Tom Hanks' greatest films.
That is one of his most awesome movies.
No. I mean, in the Pantheon. That's not one that I would expect on prestige channels. That's one of those kind of like, hey, it's funny.
I know. But when I think of Tom Hanks, there's so many movies of his of late. Like, I don't know. He's a great actor, but sometimes I just want to watch ridiculousness. And he he used to be very good at that. But then I kind of pivoted, and I saw some movies I hadn't seen in a while, and I was actually surprised at how well they look and hold up. So I hadn't seen Crawl in a long time.
I just watched that too.
And good. I sat down and I watched it the other day, right? And I was actually really surprised at how good that movie still looks.
Oh no, that's a great movie.
It looks great.
Yep,
like I don't remember that being like a big budget movie when it was made.
No, it's beautifully shot. I don't know where they shot it, but the landscapes they used, the externals are great.
It looks good.
Costume design is very good.
Yes, I love the armor design in it.
Yep.
The practical effects throughout the movie are very well done.
Sound design, when those things shriek.
When the shrieking. Cracked. Yeah, I love it. Like, yeah, it is still a very kind of smart,
the goddamn, you know what,
sci-fi fantasy movie.
I really get pissed off when people dismiss Crawl. I have to be honest, because there's so many. The Widow of the Web segment alone rivals, I'm not kidding, anything in Lord of the Rings.
You know what? Listen, I was watching it. I came to the realization, which I hadn't before, that the actor playing the Cyclops is fucking blind. You cannot see.
I had seen something where they said it's impossible for that person to see.
Yeah, he can't see. So all the acting he does is like blind. Which there's a few scenes there where he's like running ahead, looking around, and you're like, that guy can't see shit. And yet it still looks believable.
Well, what they do, they have them run the terrain without the thing on, and they make sure that there's no. They practice.
I'm sure they run them through all the paces, but
still, you are trusting that you will not errantly step on a rock and split your skull in half.
Yeah, or there's a scene where he like throws the javelin.
Yes.
And like it's very smooth the way he does it. I mean, he's not going to hit the broadside of a barn, but in the movie it looks great. I hadn't sat down and actually watched Crawl in a while, and I was surprised I was really surprised at how good it still looks. Because you know how you and I always talk, they should remake Crawl. I honestly don't know. It's not that I think Crawl needs a remake. I'd like to know more about the universe of Crawl, because they reference so much shit in that movie. I forgot how much they reference other planets and other systems.
Oh, yeah. Well, of course, because the Beast,
it's from another world.
Right. There's lots of stuff that, yes, could be. I mean, even the what do they call the soldiers? I can't remember what his soldiers are called. Do they have a name?
No,
maybe they don't. I think they're just called his soldiers or whatever.
Yeah.
But even the things that come out of them, you barely see those things.
Yeah, the bugs that jump on the ground. Yeah, and then the Cyclops are not from Earth.
Nope. They were cursed
planet.
From their deal with the Beast.
Yeah, so that movie is absolutely still good looking. It's better looking than a lot of the movies from that age.
And you know what? Now that you say that, I totally agree. What the only thing you would need out of Krull to revisit is for someone to get the glaive. That would be the initial quest, is to get this weapon of legend that was buried on Krull. Go get the glaive. Because I mean, we don't know that it's destroyed. We just never see it.
No, and the universe. I mean, it's they managed to make this is kind of like Willow in that respect, right?
Yeah.
So Willow is still a good looking movie. I still love Willow. Willow is great, But there's so much about the world of Willow you don't know. And they made the TV show about Willow, and they expanded more on that world. They references other things. You see more of the landscape. Krull is the same kind of material, where it's like, it still looks good. It still holds up. And, I mean, the world, for some reason, I was watching it, and it made me think of Dark Crystal.
Sure. Oh, very similar. There's very similar
lot of
ideas.
Dark Crystal. So, so I saw that, and I wanted to mention the fact that it still looked really good because I was impressed by that. And then I watched Cyborg 2 the other day. I put it on as a.
Oh boy.
Yeah, hold on.
Boy.
So I put it on as like kind of a. Honestly, I put it on because I couldn't get Eliminators. That's. Let's be honest about that.
It's a good. No, it's a fair sub. It's a fair sub.
Yeah. So I couldn't, and I didn't want to watch the first Cyborg because the first Cyborg is a very serious movie, and it's a good movie. Yeah.
By the way, I would have to make sure of this, but I don't remember that movie ever having a subtitle when I was younger. All I ever remember it being called was Cyborg 2. Now it's called Cyborg 2: Glass Shadow.
Oh, but honestly, that phrase "Glass Shadow" is one of the coolest things from that movie.
Well, it is, but do you remember it ever having a subtitle?
No,
when you were
it was always Cyborg 2.
Yeah, it was always
so
Cyborg 2 featuring Angela Jolie, who looks great.
Yeah, so Cyborg 2 and Cyborg have nothing to do with each other, really. I mean, yes, there's robots, and they reference the robots in the first one, but they're in completely different settings, right? But
except that they, of course, managed to shoe in a flashback.
Yes, well, in the opening, they do it in like the opening credits, which is very funny. So the first Cyborg movie is kind of a neat Mad Maxy, kind of serious beat 'em up movie with Jean-Claude Van Damme. I enjoy it.
Yes,
but it is a completely different beast from Cyborg 2.
Yeah.
Now I had forgotten this movie, and I remember it being shittier, right? And I was surprised that it was as massively watchable still as it was, right? So I'm going to call him, his name is Elias Koteas, but honestly, it's Casey Jones from Teenage Mutant Turtles.
Yeah.
Dude, he's still awesome in that movie.
And he's got a great name.
What was his name? It was
Colt 45. Yeah. Colton Colt 45.
So he is part of that sci-fi male vest wearing problem that a lot of us nerds grew up with. You know, where like you put a vest on and you look in the mirror and you're like, dude, I look cool. And then you're like, no, you don't. You look like an asshole. Oh, they only look good in movies wearing vests. But I can't help it but think vests are cool. Han Solo wore a vest. Colt 45 wore a vest. Was it Ben Browder as Crichton wore a vest? Sci-fi vests are awesome. But they're just,
and who's in it? One of our favorite people is in it.
Jack Palance?
No, not Jack Palance. Billy Drago, baby. Billy Drago's in it.
Yeah, as like an utter scumbag of a villain. I mean,
that dude has that role locked.
Yeah, and then watching it, it's so cyberpunk.
It is. It's like, a fun movie. It is
massively. In fact, Cyborg 2 has more in common with Johnny Mnemonic than it does with the first Cyborg movie in so many ways, right? I'm with you. So it was just so funny because and like Jack Palance's mouth on the TVs popping up everywhere. I mean, that is still so cool. Like, it shouldn't be cool. It should be fucking ridiculous. And yet it is so awesome the way he just pops in. And then when you finally see him and he's old man, and every time he walks, there's that like positronic gear sound where it's like it's fucking awesome. Right? So in the pantheon of kind of low budget but like really watchable sci-fi flicks, I thought Cyborg 2 was I remember it being way worse than it is. But honestly, it's way better, and it's in that weird category. It's like Nemesis, right? Nemesis was a low budget sci-fi movie, but like there's a lot of interesting concepts in there, and they filmed the hell out of it. And like, is it a great movie? No, but it's so goddamn watchable. You know, and like Eliminators is in the same grouping for me, except it's kind of early, and I couldn't fucking see it. So I just wanted to mention that because it's two older movies that I remember being shittier than they are, and on watching them, I thought, wow, these are way better than I remember them being. Yeah, and then yes, it's also Angelina's first movie. First, and I think the only movie that she's... Oh, no, she gets naked later on.
Oh, no. Watch Gia if you'd like to see her nude, because that's basically
actually,
the whole movie.
You know, a funny story. So I was talking to my tattooist about Cyborg 2. And I was saying how on seeing it, I know that I'm old because I look at the movie and I'm like, God, she's too young in this. She's 19. Mm-hmm. She's too young. She's younger than she's younger than my oldest. Yeah. And my tattooist, who is like, what's the way to describe him? He's a big nerd like me, but he's more,
he's more morally vague.
He's more morally vague. Yes. He said.
I knew where you were trying to head with that.
Yeah. He's more morally vague in this stuff than I am. Whereas I'm like, oh God, she's so young. It's like I don't even know if I can. Like I don't know if I can even fully kind of enjoy this because she's almost too young, right? Which tells me that I'm getting old. Whereas he turned to me and he goes, I have a snowsuit policy, and I'm like, what's that? He goes, if I've never seen you in a snowsuit, it's okay. And I'm like, because he's got
that's hysterical.
He's got.
I knew exactly what that meant.
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is
So he's got daughters as well, and one of his daughters is like 19, 20.
That is warped.
And he's like, oh, and she's got these friends. He's like from college, and they're really cute. And I'm like, oh, you can't look at her friends. It's wrong. And then I'm like, oh, you know what? He's like, I never saw her in a snowsuit. He's like, I never saw her when she was younger. He's like, so it's okay. And I'm like, I guess if those are your rules, then
you are building that box very effectively, sir, around your brain.
I have to give credit. He thought about it and he set himself some rules.
No, there absolutely is a logic to that. I just don't know that I can subscribe to it.
But even looking at her face in that movie, I'm like, oh God, you're too young. You're too young. And like I never, and I'm not saying that you can't. I'm not saying that you can't date people who are in different age brackets from you, and that you can find a lot of, But I do know for myself personally, there's this point where I look back and I go, yeah, and like I had this weird thing lately where I'll watch older movies and see young actresses, and then it suddenly occurs to me that like they're probably in like their 30s now.
Yeah.
And I'm always
there is that weird thing where actually at that time you would have been.
I was a kid at that point, yeah.
Right, so there's that weird time dilation thing that happens.
When Cyborg 2 came out, how old was I? What year was that?
Sorry, just.
Was that 90? I think that's 92.
I was going to say 92 or 94. It is 93, of course.
Oh, it was close. 93. So how old was I then?
I would have been.
I definitely wasn't.
15.
I don't think I was. Yeah, I definitely wasn't 19.
So she was older than me.
So so it's okay, right?
well, there is just to be honest about it, because I have this problem too. It's I'm very happy that I got on board the Mila train at Fifth Element, and not Return to the Blue Lagoon, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, but how old were you when Return to the Blue Lagoon came out?
Oh, I don't know, but it doesn't matter because she looks like she's 14. You see what I'm saying?
But if you were 14 when you saw that movie and you were like,
I wouldn't be, but I couldn't watch it as an adult. That it would bother me, is what I'm saying. But I
see what you mean. Yeah, because if you see Mila in that movie, you're like, you look young. You look really young.
And
honestly, it's at a point now where she almost looks like her daughter, who is in movies now.
Right. And that's no problem because I'm never going to look at her daughter that way. Like, it's just, I know,
but that's what I mean. Like, it's just like, Jesus Christ. Like, yeah.
But since Fifth Element was, no, we're in a full adult now. It's like, nope, I can revisit that movie when I'm 90 and I will never feel bad. I just won't. It's like,
doesn't matter.
Okay.
She's good there. It's cool.
Yep. There's some strange thing that happens there.
I don't know if I'm in the same place as you. But I do know that Angelina Jolie looks too young for me.
Well, there is a line. What I'm saying is there is some kind of line, and it's different for different people.
Don't get me wrong. Like, I appreciate that my tattooist has a snowsuit rule. I appreciate that he thought about it, and he set ground rules. Right?
Yeah, there's just this point where, and it's different for everybody. Yeah, and it's a nebulous thing, but there is this transition point where there are people who look, quote unquote, too young.
Yeah.
There's
So
something different about their facial and body structures where they start pushing too far down. It's like, no, there's something wrong here. I can't.
Yeah. And I said to my wife, and I joke around about this stuff all the time, like jokingly talk about like, what we'd do if we were suddenly, I mean, like in a humorous way, not like a deadly way, but like, or a deadly serious way. Like if one of us was suddenly a widow, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, I always say to my wife, I was like, I'm going to get a real doll of you and just kind of keep it around the house to be creepy. And she always laughs about that. But at the same time, like, if you were suddenly single tomorrow, right? My wife and I were talking about how, like, there's these, you have to think about your rules. You have to think about what's, and I said to my wife, I was like, it's too young.
Well,
like
actually, I'll tell you something, because this occurred to me a couple of days ago, and I don't remember why, but it was. I think I was reading something about this, not this specifically, but something about an older movie. And I think, at least for me, one of the things I've realized is one of the reasons that my taste in movies for recent movies has died out almost entirely is partially that. Is that I grew up ogling women who were the same or old, or in many cases far older than me, 10, 12 years older.
Oh, movies. So like, I see what you mean.
So now a modern movie,
now,
because
like,
there is so much, because there's so much emphasis
like
on
now.
Ripped shirts and tight pants. It's like there's something gross there. That's on top of the fact that I think the movies aren't made as well, because I'm partial to the era I grew up in, like we all are. But on top of that is this thing where it's like, and they all look plastic. I'm sorry, it's just the reality. They all look over manufactured.
It screws me up is when you watch a movie like I'm trying to think. Okay, you know what? You watch a movie like Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, right? Which is like a 90s movie, right? And there's one sister in them of the four who's like the older sister, and she's very pretty, right? Like she's young. She's 15 in that movie probably. She's very pretty, right? She's a very pretty girl. But I watched that movie and I was like, shit. I've seen this woman in other movies. I've seen her as a woman in other movies. And I've seen her naked in other movies as an adult, right? And then you think, oh, Jesus Christ, I'm seeing you when you're like, when you're too young, and like it just kind of weirds you out.
Well, yes.
It's like
I mentioned Angelina Jolie and Gia, right?
Yeah.
About how she's nude throughout it. Now, I saw that movie a few years after it had come out on HBO.
Yes.
When I would say 98, 2000 in there. At that point, I was 20 to 22, which was, I think, roughly the same age. I watched that movie for very different reasons than it was probably made. I will never rewatch that movie now. I would never watch it now, because it would be disgusting to me to watch it for the reasons that I know I watched it for when I watched it. So that's what I mean about...
Well, that's the thing.
The movie is the same. It's the same movie.
Yeah, when I sat down to watch Cyborg 2, I didn't put it on because I was like, oh, this is Angelina Jolie. She gets
also the thing in Gia, when I watched it originally, I didn't care about the fact that she died horribly as a AIDS victim. I was not thinking about any of that.
When I put Cyborg 2 on, it's because I remember it being a like lowbrow sci-fi cyberpunkish movie. I remember that Casey Jones was in it, and that was Angelina Jolie was the cyborg, and that Jack Palance's mouth was all over the place. You know what? He's like the opposite extreme of Max Headroom in that movie.
Right. It's the zoomed in Max Headroom.
Yeah, whereas Max Headroom is kind of like funny and kind of like, funny and benign.
Irreverent and harmless and jokestery.
Yeah, Jack Palance is like, he's zoomed in, but he's fucking dangerous. And when he finally does show up, he kills a ton of people.
Do you understand what's going to happen to you?
Oh,
he's got
man,
that way of speaking too with the mouth.
He hisses. Yeah, he hisses. And at one point, though, he says the greatest line from that movie: "If you want to dine with the devil, you're going to need a long spoon." I don't know what that means.
But it's a great line.
But it's a great line. He comes out with two machine guns, one in each hand, with his like positronic knees, and he starts firing, and he yells, he's like, "If you want to dine with the devil, you're going to need a long spoon." And I just kept thinking of him and Batman going, Jack, you're my number one guy.
My number one guy.
So I saw it for other reasons, but then I was like, Jesus Christ, Angelina Jolie looks really young. And it's a weird thing with history, isn't it? Weird thing with time and the way it drags out, and the perspective of things and how it changes and then how it gets weirder. Because like I said, I watched Lion the Witch in the Wardrobe with my kids, and I saw that actress and she was really young, and I was like, holy shit. I was like, I've seen you older. I've seen the future of you. I was like, so it's weird to go back, you know? Somebody just posted me online where it was like, who's the guy who plays Walter White, who was in Godzilla?
Oh, Cranston. Bryan Cranston.
Yeah, it was Bryan Cranston when he was way younger selling carpets on TV.
Yeah.
Right? And I looked at it, I'm like, wow, I was like, you are so young. You know, like, great example is Helen Mirren, right? So Helen Mirren is like one of my old lady crushes. I don't know if you have one of these, an old lady crush where you're like, she's an older lady, but she's amazing. I love Helen Mirren. But then sometimes I go back and I watch old movies with Helen Mirren when she's young and naked. And she's like in her 30s. So,
yeah.
But like it just feels, oddly, it feels like the Lion, the Witch in the Wardrobe thing where it's like I'm seeing you and you're so young. I was like, and you're young because the way I know you now is like you in like your 70s. I was like, but Jesus, I see you in your 30s and you were amazing. And it's just such a weird history thing. And it's the same with like we'll switch it over to males. Peter O'Toole. You see Peter O'Toole in Lawrence of Arabia, right? And the man was magnificent. He was magnificent looking. That guy was a fucking movie star.
Doesn't look like the same guy.
No, and then you see him, you know, in like, I'm trying to think, one of the last movies I saw him in.
Oh, I'm thinking of like, what's High Spirits or what was the movie?
Oh, yeah. You see him in the High Spirits.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's 80s already. So he was like old, but he wasn't as old, you know.
But that's the thing to me is I never saw him. You know, I remember seeing Lawrence of Arabia a couple of times on television. But I didn't watch a lot of Peter O'Toole stuff when I was younger.
Yeah.
I knew him from the other stuff.
I saw What's Up Pussycat way too young. And that was like my vision of Peter O'Toole as like this young, like womanizing, you know, driving around in an MG with like a cigarette hanging out of his, like, yeah. But it is fascinating the way that cinema records the history of these actors' lives at these different points, and the way the body changes. The way, I mean, some people would say degrade, but you know, like. I don't look at Mila now and think she's degrading from the time she was in.
No,
you know.
she is not degrading at all.
Listen, we all peak, right?
Yeah, but she's still in there.
Oh, she's a beautiful woman.
She's got a while left, I think.
I think Helen Mirren is still a beautiful woman. Okay.
Oh, sure. No,
but
you're
no
right.
one,
there's a peak area,
and no one can say that Angela Bassett is not a.
Oh yeah. Angela Bassett looks extraordinarily
amazing,
ageless.
The woman looks amazing.
Actually, we were talking about what it would be. That Angela Bassett would probably be it, or Tina Turner, honestly.
Ah, Tina Turner, yeah.
Yeah.
So yes,
it always helps when they can sing.
So it's fascinating to me to see like these people in older movies, and how it is weird for you as well to see it. You know.
Oh yeah.
And how it's like, yeah, it is a question, right? Like, you know. If you've always liked Mila, and then you go back and you see Mila when she's in like Blue Lagoon, and you're like, oh, she's so hot. Are you a creeper? Because you watched that movie when you were a kid, and you've liked her your whole life. So like,
it would make, in my mind, yes, I can't do it. That's why, like I said, I'm glad that I didn't really notice her until later, because that gives me a clean break.
Yeah. So, and then in your head, you're like, okay, there's only a certain point I can go back.
Yes.
Got it.
Easy.
No, hey.
And that's pretty much true for anybody.
Always good to have ground rules. Ground rules are important.
Yeah.
You know, so even if they're weird or fucked up, it's good to have ground rules. It's good to enter a conversation and being able to say, you know what, I have thought about this. And honestly, these are my ground rules.
The other nice part for me is, and it wasn't even really something like that guy where I sat there and said, okay, I have to make a rule. I have noticed that there is a certain age range where I simply do not find it attractive to look at. I don't care what. I just look and I'm like, oh.
Yeah, no. Angela.
Because like I said, there's some kind
young.
of,
but you know what?
Kind of structure change that
but
happens.
she's not too young in Hackers. And and it's weird because Hackers is only what, like 2-3 years later.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, but 2-3 years makes a difference.
But I still think she looks amazing in that movie.
Well, sure.
You know.
Yeah. But 2-3 years can make a difference. I don't know what that difference is, but somehow there is something
legally
about it. And maybe,
it makes a difference.
Well, no, maybe I don't even know if it's yes, that's technically true. But I also think it could be a case of.
You know what? Listen, Jennifer Jason Leigh, Flesh and Blood with Rutger Hauer,
Sure.
right? That's a
or
one
Bridget
of,
Fonda and Frankenstein Unbound, like something like that.
Yeah, I know. Paul Verhoeven, right? Paul Verhoeven is one of Paul Verhoeven's wild movies.
Yeah.
Jennifer Jason Leigh, to my understanding, was underage for that movie.
Yeah, I think that's right.
And she was naked all over that fucking film, and like, it's weird when you see it. Like, especially when, like, knowing Jennifer Jason Leigh now, and, like, it's just strange, you know, and, like, I wonder how many actresses, when they're young, do these movies and are, like, naked all over them, and then, like, their career never goes anywhere, like, they kind of disappear after that. If it's weirder when their career goes on, and you're like, you know, I love Helen Mirren. She's an amazing actress.
No,
she used to have a great chest, you know, like.
This is part of the other side of it, which I think because, yes, I don't care how good an actor you are, especially early on, you can tell when some of these actresses or actors, frankly, are not comfortable with what's going on and they feel like they have to do it. That also is just, it's almost always apparent. And that also kills any appeal of anything. So Cyborg 2, Angelina Jolie famously has said that she would throw up after that movie constantly and hated every part of it. I think that's very clear if you actually look at it.
Every part of that movie? But she kicked so much ass in that movie.
Well, yeah, but I don't know what was going on behind the scenes. Is all I'm saying.
Okay, yeah, because outside
you look at her in some of that movie, and you can tell
outside of the
sex
scene in that movie, which is like kind of which is gratuitous, right?
And maybe that's it. Maybe that destroyed the rest of the movie for her.
But the rest of the movie, she's not an object of. She's not a sexualized object through the course of the movie. In fact, the movie is more about the two of them. It's very Blade Runner in that respect, is that she does not want to be that thing, and then they are actually becoming like a couple, right? And the whole idea is, will they make it, you know? Which is where Jack Palance is involved, because he's a cyborg and he lost his wife, which is why he's helping them, right? So it's weird because she is not objectified, even though the movie itself, she is an object. They consider her an object. Outside of that one sex scene. And the weird thing is, you could cut that sex scene out completely, and it would still be a fun, schlocky, sci-fi movie with a lot of interesting cyberpunk elements. Right? And in fact, I totally forgot that sequence.
So apparently, I'm reading this. Apparently, she did enjoy the kickboxing.
Yeah, she kicks ass. It
was everything else about it. So it sounds like it was more of a, you know.
Yeah, she liked it being an ass kicker. She didn't like the take your clothes off now.
Yeah.
And I can understand that, because you know what? Like, I'm not shy, but yeah, taking all my clothes off in front of a movie set full of people, probably feels weird. You know?
Yeah.
Like, that's one of the things that if you really stop and think about it when you're watching movies, you're like, this whole cinema thing is fucking bizarre. Like, it's the bunch of you are. That's why. Oh, what's that movie? Oh, Jesus, it's Bilbo. It's young Bilbo. What's his name? Martin Freeman, and he's a sex scene stand-in.
Oh yeah, what is that called? I know what you mean. I don't remember the name though.
Love Actually.
There you go.
Where he meets the girl on the set, and they're like both naked, and they're like supposed to hold like sex scenes for like the framing of the scene, and I'm kind of like, yeah, you know what? I always wonder if it is that absurd, you know, because you know then they film it and they cut it and it looks great, but then when they're filming it, you're like, yeah, it must look like. I would love to see the like unfinished shots from like Star Trek. Like the show Star Trek, like Strange New Worlds. Just show me a scene on the bridge with no special effects, just the actors in like that, you know, that lighting, what do you call it? The soap opera lighting.
Uh-huh.
And just see like how cheesy does this look? Right? But then, you know, they add the effects and the lighting and the music and you know, and it's like, whoa, it's amazing. So, yeah, it's I mean, this is the artifice of cinema, right? that we're dealing with.
Oh yeah, of course.
You know, but then there's like, oh, what is that? Was it Last Tango in Paris?
Oh,
where like
yeah.
that the one scene that's technically not rape, but kind of
Except it is.
Yeah, you know, and you're like, geez, that's fucked up. And I know, like with you won't watch movies with Usual Suspects. What's his name?
Oh, Kevin Spacey.
You won't watch Kevin Spacey movies anymore.
Yeah,
because you're like, that guy's a scumbag, right?
Yeah, not except for a couple because they are large ensemble. Like L.A. Confidential, we still watch.
Yeah.
And even though he's a big part of it, although that
I'll still watch
ironically is
Usual
one of the worst
Suspects because I think Usual Suspects is a great movie beyond him. There's a lot of other people involved in that film.
Yeah, that's not one I would probably intentionally avoid. But it's Usual Suspects is strange because I watched it again. I'm going to say 5 or 6 years ago or something like that.
Yeah,
and it didn't. It was okay, but it didn't seem as good. And maybe it's because I don't know.
What's it?
The Kaiser Soze stuff.
Yeah, the Kaiser Soze stuff is so out and has gotten so digested by the culture. Like
there is a part of that, but I don't know. There's something else. I almost feel like that movie needed to be a half hour longer. I don't know how else to say it because I felt like I wanted more of some of those characters. I think that's what it is. Some of them feel very truncated to me. It's certainly not saying it's a bad movie. It's not a Spacey movie I would refuse to watch. Like Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, I won't watch that anymore. Even though it's a shame because I loved that movie when I was younger. I thought that was such a great kind of character movie. But he dominates the whole thing and he's fucking gross, so I don't want any part of it anymore.
There you go.
Whereas, L.A. Confidential, when he gets shot, even though the movie wants you to be sad about it, I'm kind of like, good. He's dead.
Well, he is kind of a scumbag in that movie.
He is. Yes.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's any actors or actresses that their scumbag like behavior has really put me off their movies.
Mel Gibson has really. I mean, I was. Once he went full Passion of the Christ, I was kind of out anyway.
I want to say that no, but honestly, like, I still love Lethal Weapon movies, and I still love Mad Max, and like.
He's a little different, I will say, because. I mean, I don't know how you. This isn't necessarily justification.
Like, I don't want to watch.
I feel like his father did something to him. He was programmed. It's because if you ever hear interviews with his father is even further crazy than he is.
Oh, I didn't.
Oh, his father is a lunatic, full Holocaust denier, all of it. So it's one of those things where it's the same thing where we talked about with serial killers, where there is a part of me that goes. Some of these guys have never had a chance.
Yeah, what happened to you? Yeah,
but
like more recent Mel Gibson movies, I'm kind of like whatever. But like the older ones, the classic ones.
No, I still watch Mad Max, the Mad Max films. I still watch Lethal Weapon. I still watch.
Is there any actor or actress that I've gotten just?
But it's almost the reverse of what I was talking about.
You know what?
Where there's a certain point with Mel where I'm like, done, no more. That's it.
You know what?
This is
I
cut
will
off.
say this. I don't enjoy Woody Allen movies, young Woody Allen movies anymore.
I fortunately never liked his movies. Therefore,
I did like some of his movies, his younger movies, like Sleeper and stuff like that.
I never ever have understood the Woody Allen thing.
Now I kind of look back and I'm like, you know what? Like the Sun Yi thing, like outside of any allegations, right? Let's just put all the other stuff aside. It is fucked up that he married his
stepdaughter.
His stepdaughter, right? Was his stepdaughter, or was it his girlfriend's stepdaughter?
No, I believe.
Or his girlfriend's adopted daughter. Either way, it is the whole Sun Yi thing is weird.
You're right.
And it's not like It's not like I'm sitting there going, he shouldn't be allowed to make movies. But it makes him a bit creepy.
Wow. Okay, here we go. Let's see. He married an underage. Okay, well, he was 20, she was 17. I know, whatever, but that's in some states that's legal.
Oh,
anyway.
and the age gap is ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah, the age gap thing is.
So like the whole thing is weird, and to me it's weird. It's weird even by my rules. Like the age gap is kind of gross to me. And it has made me
adopted
put me off.
Daughter.
Is his adopted? Okay.
Wait. Mia Farrow and Andre Previn adopted.
Oh, so he's his girlfriend's adopted.
So yes, you're right. His girlfriend's adopted daughter.
So either
that's
way,
fucked up.
And that's the thing is, no matter what that however that situation played out, right? If it wasn't a famous actor director, you know, if tomorrow a friend of yours who was, let's say, in his mid-20s or 30s, right, said that he was going to date, let's go for a safe age. No, so 19. We'll say he wanted to date the 19-year-old adopted daughter of his girlfriend, right? Even if the age ranges were closer, you would still look at that and go, that's fucking weird, man.
Yeah.
Like, I know it's not technically like illegal, but morally it's kind of fucked up, right? So because of that, it has put Woody Allen in kind of a weird box where I'm like, yeah, you know, I just can't enjoy these the way I did when I was younger. Like, I look at Woody Allen now and I'm like, yeah, it's creepy, dude. It's a creepy thing.
Yes. It implies there's worse underneath.
Yeah. So it's I think that's like the one, like that's the one for me.
Here again, funny coincidence, because the other day I happened to see something about that. You know that Owen Wilson movie where he's basically playing a Bob Ross kind of character, but it's not Bob Ross, that Paint movie?
Yes. Yeah.
I thought, you know what? That's the smart way to do it, because if tomorrow... Because I was thinking about becoming...
if you find out
what is
that
it?
Bob Ross was
what's
like
the John
a
Malkovich movie? Is it Becoming John Malkovich? What's that movie?
Being John Malkovich.
That's it. I always mix it up. Like, if tomorrow we find out that John Malkovich was a monstrous pedophile, that movie is destroyed.
Yeah, it is no good.
But if it's a John Malkovich-esque character, you are fine, because it's not the person.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? Not that I think Bob Ross is
Nick Cage.
dead.
I hope that Nick Cage doesn't do anything really monstrous.
Right. That's what my thought was. No one should ever make a movie about any person directly. They should always be a pseudonym, because if tomorrow that person comes out, like, because there was that British guy who was a children's entertainer. I don't remember his name. I think it's Savile or something, whatever his name was.
Yeah, Jimmy Savile. Yeah.
But
Jimmy Savile, who was
he died before it came out?
Yeah,
Did he die?
I'm pretty sure he died before it all came out. And
right.
then it all came out. And the thing is, he had been like a darling of the BBC. And he had all these awards, and everybody loved him.
Right.
But secretly, there was this big case building up of the fact that he had abused all these young girls. And it's like...
So imagine that they had made a movie glorifying him as a doctor, which you could have. They made a movie about Mr. Rogers. Tom Hanks did it, right? So you better hope Mr. Rogers doesn't turn out... I mean, I like Bob Ross. He's been dead long enough. I assume we would have... Either they've covered it up or we would have heard by now, and I don't genuinely think there is anything like that. Not everybody's a monster, just most. So if they made some, Anthony Hopkins starred in it, it got an Academy Award, blah, 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 and then the year after, it comes out that he was monstrous.
Hold on. Bill Cosby. I can't watch any Bill Cosby movies. I can't watch... I
agree.
And the worst part is, like, his stand-up about parenting.
So there, you found somebody.
Yeah, his stand-up about parenting. Like, if I catch like a little bit of that, I still think the comedy is funny, right? But I can't sit down and listen to it because I know that he is so fucked up.
Oh, look, the worst person in the world can have a talent.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, John Wayne Gacy was a painter. So
is Hitler.
Right. So it's not to say that a monstrous person cannot have a talent. They can still write a good joke.
Your ability to then
and I'll tell you something. The reason you can find that funny is because it's not about drugging women or that, because
no, but it's the same. But it's the same thing with like Louis C.K. Where like Louis C.K. didn't joke around whipping his dick out in front of women and jerking off, and using his power structure to kind of like keep them there.
Not specifically, but he did do some masturbation jokes that you could go,
But there was always something a bit kind of heavy gross about Louis C.K.
And right from the beginning.
Always, like, there was always some kind of like he's like the breather on the phone. Like, it was that.
Yeah, I was gonna say he looks like a peeping Tom. I'm sorry to generalize, but it's true.
I don't know if to me he looks like a peeping Tom.
If I looked out a window and saw that guy jerking off with a set of binoculars, I would not be surprised.
I say this, having Louis C.K. was the kind of friend that, like, if I had someone in my life who was like him, was the kind of friend that if they told me something really fucked up that they had done you wouldn't have trouble believing it. I'd be like, yeah, I could see him.
It's like looking at me and saying, I bet that guy likes comic books. Yeah, you're right.
And I do not like the stereotype at all.
I don't either, but some people give off
because
I
get stereotyped. I get stereotyped all the time having tattoos and shit.
Of course, everybody. I mean, stereotypes as a broad brush are not always accurate.
Yeah.
But there are times where when you find out something about somebody, you're not exactly shocked.
No, you're not. Yeah.
It's like if you live next door to somebody and you hear shrieking cat noises in the basement and there's newspapers on the windows all the time and you find out that guy's a serial killer. Are you really shocked?
Disappointed.
Yeah. That's the beautiful part about Clint Howard. He has maximally gone against what he looks like his whole life. He's like, I look like I should be. Yeah. I look like the guy who should be throwing kids, like him playing the ice cream man murderer. Yeah. Looks like an autobiography.
But he's the nicest guy.
Right. So
yeah,
sometimes you can make it work for you, man.
Fucking what's his name? The Dick Break guy.
Oh yeah, Dick Break.
Yeah, I mean, like he plays this skeevy, oily, like and then I've seen him in interviews, and he's like the nicest guy, and it's like I feel bad for these actors who get stereotyped in these roles because
there's a lot of those.
Fucking
types.
Drago. Drago's a great example. What's his name? Vincent
Billy
Drago. Yeah, he looks like a skeevy villain, and every movie he plays that character. But I'm sure that in real life he's like a gracious, professional.
There are many people who look like monsters in their acting roles that are actually very nice people.
Well, Alice Cooper's like, everything I've read about him, so nice. Like Gene Simmons.
Well, look at John Carpenter, who likes NBA Jam and video games now, and
golf and hockey. Yeah.
And getting drunk on commentaries.
Yes, it's funny because it kind of. I think that's the thing is that you try not to stereotype. You try not to conceive of people in a certain way based on like your instinct, and you're like, no, put that away. But then you hear like, oh yeah, Louis C.K. was like a fucking monster, and you're like, god damn it, like. I wanted him not to be that way.
Stereotypes are generally not completely correct, but it doesn't mean they're not occasionally right.
The Bill Cosby thing totally blindsided me because I never looked at Bill Cosby. Bill Cosby was like the TV dad.
Well, that was the architected image. That was
and it's like that's why
I'm sure the Jimmy Savile guys. Nobody, they may have been building the case in the background, but to most people.
But you look at photos of him. I don't understand how there's any way you can look at photos of that guy and not be like, it looks like there's something up with him.
Okay.
Have you ever seen pictures of him?
A lot of people from the 60s and 70s era
it must
looked like they lived under bridges and were killing people as they crossed. I'm just saying there was a lot of big hair and weird things happening.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that part of that was just his general 60s, 70s Britishness.
Maybe that's what it is.
I mean, because let's be honest. If you saw, what's his face? Oh, God. Crosby. What's it? David Crosby?
Yeah.
If you saw David Crosby in his heyday coming down a dark alley at you, you would have called the cops and said, my child's about to be sawn in half.
He looked like a fucking hippie.
No, he looked like a psychopath. Just saying.
Alice Cooper, on the other hand, you might be like, oh, wait a minute, devil worshiper.
Well, but that's on purpose. That's he's trying to look scary.
So it's funny how it proves on many levels that stereotypes don't work because there's no consistency. No,
I'm not. This is not me arguing for general application of stereotypes. I'm just saying that occasionally
it's just interesting. Yeah, occasionally.
Yeah, occasionally you look at it and go, that doesn't surprise me.
That guy looks like a creep. Oh, surprise! He's a creep.
He's a creep. Right.
Yeah, and then but the thing
is, like
Danny
Trejo coming down an alleyway, and yet you find out.
I love his tacos. Yeah.
Well, and has done lots of community work with people, especially people who went to prison. All this stuff because he had a hard youth. But you look at him and you assume that he is a gangbanger. I mean, that's what, outside of the fact that now he's in every single movie possible. But when he wasn't and was starting out, I'm sure people looked. I mean, you look at that tattoo on his chest, and you're like, that's a motherfucker who's seen some shit.
Yes and no. Only because, I have a different point of view of tattoos than you. So.
Well, I'm saying an ordinary person.
Yeah, honestly, listen.
Looks at Danny Trejo.
It's not that he's got the tattoo on his chest. It's the leather vest.
That's what I'm saying.
It's just the leather vest.
This is the thing. One of the things I love
about
the best about him in a vest.
I'm gonna make a stereotype here. A man who wears just a leather vest.
Yes.
You have to be somewhat concerned with.
When you have a face, Dan Trejo has a I will blow you into pieces face. He looks severe. That's not a bad thing. I wish I had that kind of look generally. And when I want
to look in the mirror and be afraid.
Yeah, I want to look in the mirror and the mirror cracks. So and not from ugliness, from toughness.
Your sheer intensity.
And then
you
when you
want
wear
to arc an eyebrow and have the glass shatter.
Yeah, and the vest focuses you straight down from the face into the torso, which has that big tattoo. And what I'm saying is, when he was playing the knife thrower, that looked fantastic.
Is there any other character in a movie just in a leather vest who is not a bad guy?
Oh, man. Just in a leather vest.
Just in a leather vest. Not on a
probably
t-shirt.
Is, but I can't think
John Crichton. John Crichton wears a leather vest, but he's wearing it with a t-shirt, and it's not just a leather vest. I'm saying.
Hold on, I'm doing a search that
will
put me on a list. Actors in only leather vests. Let's see. Can I find one? No, The Rock doesn't count.
I think it's almost too specific a.
It may be. I'm getting a lot of genre responses, shall we say. Yeah, movies that you don't buy in the Blockbuster in the front. Let's see. Yeah, I don't see anything. There's a lot of women in just leather vests, but
yeah, it's a different thing.
Oh, and now I'm getting into fetish porn. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, yeah. It
I mean, it would have. It doesn't take many rows of Google results before you start seeing, certain things.
You know what? Men in leather jackets with no shirts is another thing mostly.
Okay.
That's
hold on, let's see.
Mostly villains as well.
You know what? I did see a top 50. Hold on, there was something. Top 50 celebrities wearing leather jackets that are well known. Are any of these not wearing a shirt? This is the question. So far, all shirts. I am not seeing a single one yet with not a shirt underneath. Hold on. I'm still going. There are 50 of them, and yet every single one.
And you can't say it's like a biker character. There's a lot of bikers who are at least wearing like tank tops underneath or T-shirts. But if you see a man in a leather vest, just a leather vest, there's trouble.
Okay, well, I didn't expect any of the women not to be wearing shirts, but so far, not a single man who is not wearing a shirt under leather or whatever. All of them. Yeah. I just went through 50. Actors in leather jackets.
Doesn't.
Let's take a look.
Yeah.
Hold on.
In that respect, Danny Trejo has an iconic look.
He does. I'm looking for skin. This is so terrible to say that, but it's true. I mean, you could probably. I mean, 60s, 70s is probably where you'd find it. It's not so much common anymore. But okay, you know what? Here, let's try shirtless. Jesus Christ. Shirtless actors in leather jackets. Let's see. Anybody? Oh God, a lot of Speedos happening. Okay, that guy is completely naked. That guy is completely naked. Who's this? Nope, that's stock footage, but he at least has pants on. I'll give him that.
You know what? The closest thing I found was
I found one. Hasselhoff is wearing a leather jacket and a Speedo. A famous picture of him with the red circle behind him. He did it.
Interesting.
Yep.
But was that a character in a movie? Or
well, he's wearing. It's the Knight Rider jacket.
Okay, so yeah, but he didn't wear that in Knight Rider.
Well, let's see.
But the closest thing I found was Tom Jane as the Punisher.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Where he was just wearing the bulletproof vest, but again, not a leather one.
I'm looking now at Knight Rider images. This is a better list for me to be on than the previous ones I've been assigned to.
I don't think he ever wore.
I almost feel like I did see him without one. Like that there was one. I watched the whole Knight Rider run not too long ago, but I don't remember specifically now if there was one. I thought there was one where he only had the jacket on.
And it was never in the show. He was always in a leather jacket and a shirt. I'm telling you, if you go just leather jacket.
Well, I'm not okay. I will say I don't think it was all the time. There is a shot of him, Knight Rider with the car, jeans, jacket, no shirt. Yeah.
No,
One,
it wasn't
but it definitely wasn't all the time. I agree. This wasn't like the whole.
Yeah.
I can't think of a movie or show
Whereas
where the guy
Danny
always
Trejo,
went that
the
way.
second he shows up in that movie, he is just in a leather vest.
Well, of course, the director wants to get him out of a shirt if he's in one as soon as possible. Yes. You know, I mean, even What We Do in the Shadows, when he shows up as one of the Vampiric Council, there's a part where Taika Waititi goes, "Oh, there's Danny. Look up with the Mexican tattoo." Like, he literally describes him that way, and his shirt is like V-necked to his crotch. It's great. And he's like, "Dark greetings, everyone." Like, it's fucking hilarious. But even in the description, they immediately point to that tattoo. It's great.
There you go.
Yeah.
So, well, I'm sorry I've utterly derailed.
Oh, that's okay. No, it's fine. It's fine. No, that's okay. No problem. Because I only have one review. So.
You know what? And before you get to it, if anybody can think of a character, of an actor in a movie who just a leather vest, who isn't a villain or
villain. Yeah, I was just going to say, wait, the Kurgan villain.
Villain, yeah. Oh, there you go. Kurgan's another example. Just a leather jacket.
Yeah.
Bad guy. Honestly, I think he's wearing a T-shirt underneath there.
Yeah, it's a mesh T-shirt. Yeah, you're right.
Honestly, mesh T-shirt.
I forgot.
Yeah, okay.
It is mesh. I gotta rewatch that movie. I
meant
to rewatch.
I was mesh T-shirt.
Speaking of Clancy Brown movies, last night it was between Highlander and Buckaroo Banzai, and I watched Buckaroo Banzai again.
Oh man!
Just because,
you know what?
Just because I wanted John Lithgow to be a maniac.
Since you told me the whole thing about Clancy Brown laughing at Jeff Goldblum in that one scene, every time I watch that movie. If Clancy Brown's on screen, I'm focused on him.
Yep.
I'm always like, what is Clancy Brown doing? And it has made the movie far more entertaining.
I showed my wife, who has no interest in Buckaroo Banzai, I showed her the Lithgow scene where he's giving the speech in the facility at the end, and she was laughing because his facial expressions alone. I don't know what the fuck direction he was ever given. But part of it had to be make your face into a Gumby assortment of fucking facial expressions.
Oh, man. The things he does with his mouth in that movie.
His accent is alien. It's not Italian. It's alien. Like, the fact that he's playing an Italian is hilarious. The shit he says and how he, like, breaks his words up.
No, see, I think it's an alien's attempt at playing Italian.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I mean.
It's
Yeah. It's great. I love it. Great movie.
You know, it's like everyone. Oh man, when they made what was that fucking show, Moon Knight, right? Everyone was like, Jesus, what's the guy's name? Oscar Isaac. His British accent is terrible, right? And then Oscar Isaac was like, well, yeah. He's like, because he's not British. It's a fake personality. It's a fake British accent. It's supposed to be that bad.
Sure.
Because he's not British. And I was like, you know what?
Right.
I love that explanation. Because he's right.
Makes sense.
He's not actually British. It is one of his multiple personalities that picked it up from a schlocky adventure movie. You know, and you're like, that makes it makes logic.
It makes complete sense to me.
You know, but so if you know of any heroes in movies in just leather vests. I was thinking of Flash Gordon for a second there, but there's nobody there in that.
No, he's not
wearing.
I have this.
Body harnesses, yes.
You know what?
Not,
okay, I've got one that's borderline.
Oh, what's that?
The Warriors.
Oh, yeah, because
they are technically the heroes. They're the protagonists, and they're all wearing vests.
But are they shirtless?
No, they're shirtless with vests. They're leather vests that I believe every single one of them except maybe one is shirtless. Look at a picture.
I'm going to give you right?
Yeah.
They are. You are correct. You are. That is a good example.
Yeah.
But
half of them are shirtless.
Aren't they technically a gang?
They are, but I don't know. In that world, I think the only bad guys are the oh god, what are they called? The Rascals. What the hell are they? Jesus, I can't remember the names. The guys who shoot Cyrus are the bad guys. Because the other gangs, that in that world.
No, you know what? I think you found an example of at least the protagonists being just wearing leather vests and not being scumbags.
Yeah.
There you go.
I mean,
See, there you go.
Hey,
Good job.
going with our morally vague thing, they are skirting a line, certainly.
Oh, absolutely. Well, the one of them does get nabbed by the police.
Well, I was going to say Ajax, who is getting ready to rape a woman. Nobody likes him. He and Swan almost go at it several times, and they're like, "Shut up!" I mean, he is clearly
the scumbag.
He is homophobic and clearly misogynistic. Like, there's no doubt about it. The only thing he doesn't appear to be is racist. Astonishingly, he doesn't ever give that indication.
Usually those come as a package. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that character is the scumbag of that group, but Swan, there. Are they purely heroic? No, but then again, no one in this movie is.
No, but they are the protagonists.
They are the protagonists,
and they are not scumbags. Therefore, they fit the. They are the balance on the other side of the spectrum, to Danny Trejo's assassin.
Yep.
Yeah. There you go. So what have you got for me, Mr. Wizard?
I finished Frankenstein Unbound.
Oh God.
No. This ended up being, because you had said at one point that you had read it was not that well written. And when I was reading it, for a while...
Oh, no. What I said to you is not that it's not well written, is that it's written in a different style from today.
Well, not well written, but I think you said you read a review that said don't expect that much from the book or something like that. It was a review. It wasn't your opinion.
The reviews on Amazon are so-so.
Yeah, right. So I kind of went in expecting, okay, this is going to be probably an okay time written in a very old sense. And that is partially true. This book, I would recommend this to anybody who's just interested in a really weirdly written book.
I bought it. I just haven't gotten to it. Yeah, I bought it and the sequel because I will
treasure your analysis of this from a writing perspective. I'm not kidding. I can't wait for Dracula Unbound. I don't know. I don't know what to expect at this
point. Can it get weirder?
Yes. I'm stammering because it's really hard to get this book in a summary because there's so much that happens in it in terms of just the way the writing is, but also the events. Now, the events, this is a classic example of basically the same, but boy, the things that they decided to change really significantly alter some things about the story. So, as an example, you know how I was talking about in the movie at the end where he causes the ice age or he goes forward into an ice age?
Yeah, yes.
That's the whole very end of the book is that where it's the ice age and there's this one city that he finds the monster in the basement of.
Yeah.
In the book, as an example, that just happens. There's just a point where the thing shifts on its own and suddenly it's an ice age or there's just lots of snow around for some reason. Whereas in the movie, it is the final place where he chases down the monster. So he still chases down two monsters because the bride survives until he... God, okay. Hold on,
so the bride doesn't have herself shot in the head, huh?
No. All right. The first 75% of this book, because there is a massive thing that shifts, is basically a somewhat dry and overly dated and self-indulgent style of writing. In that, it's definitely both Dr. Michael Knight, as I called him in the movie review, is basically the same character, but he does come across much more as an academic. He's not directly responsible for the time shifts. He's caught up in them.
He's not utterly fucking nuts like he is in the movie.
No. He's still a little nutty, but his nuttiness is that he seems to split his personality into two parts. One, his old modern self, and one, his new I've adapted to where I am self, which he refers to as the superior self. It's weird. It's a weird device. Again, I can't wait to see what you make of this thing. Because there is a Breakworld-esque thing in what he's trying to do with him, but does not do it, I think, very effectively, or just doesn't know how to do it. I'm not sure which.
Well, it sounds like he's trying to compartmentalize his personality.
Sort of, yes. But then he'll have it be fluid where he is knowingly shifting. I don't know. Like I said, I'm not going to make an argument that this is the most smoothly written thing ever. But, and for a while it feels like an Asimov or Arthur C. Clarke type of book where there's a portion where it's him kind of describing the environment, and the kind of marvel at his time travel and now the things that he knows, it gives him an advantage and all this stuff. And that part is all fine, and the events largely unfold the same. The girl is blamed for the thing, although whereas in the movie he fails to stop it when he's just trying to convince people, she's hung because the time warps ahead and he never had a chance to begin with. He just could never have stopped it.
See, that's interesting.
Oh, it will get more interesting because there's more that's going on here. So that's what I mean about little changes that in the movie make him he's more of a action type in the movie. So all that's going along as it is, but the monster is largely absent for almost, the first 75% of the book. You see the monster briefly. You don't even really get a description of the features. That will come later. But you see him in kind of a lightning shadow for a second. He vanishes. And then he's just not, unlike the movie where he's all over the place. You don't see him again for a very long time. Instead, it is Dr. Michael Knight kind of trying to figure out what's going on and talking to Victor Frankenstein and being in awe of him. And then he meets Mary Shelley, Lord Byron, and Percy, whatever the other guy's name is.
Percival.
The poets. Yes. And holy shit.
Percival Shelley or Percy Shelley?
Whatever it is.
Yeah, whatever.
It doesn't. I mean, he's so unimportant in this thing, really, outside of being a man that's around. It doesn't matter. Byron is the more important one, at least in this author's version. And his thing with Mary Shelley, there was a point, and I don't know if we talked about this on the show or not. It may have been when we were playing video games.
Well, I wondered if they were going to somehow have them have sex because she's really young. And
she's 19, and he's...
This is.
But we factored the math, and it is Woody Allen-ish, but it is possible that he's only like 40 or so, and she's 19, and while that's still not gross, it's not 70-year-old having sex with a 19-year-old gross.
Okay, so
that segment is the most, it's one of those examples when you read something and it's clearly the author projecting his sexual fantasy into the book. Now, not in a gross way.
Okay. Let's be clear. In defense of writers and their sex scenes, right?
No.
I think that you've got writers who write what they know, and you've got writers who write what they want.
Okay. But
right?
I'm going to describe wait, before you go any further, let me describe this scene and then let's see if you have the same thing to say afterwards.
Okay, go ahead.
I will give a paraphrasing of the conversation that occurs. Now, I'm shortening this drastically and embellishing, but not by much. I will play the role of both Dr. Michael Knight and Mary Shelley, and I think it will be clear to you which roles I'm playing.
God, I'm excited now.
Mary Shelley! I have read your book from the future, and it is astonishing. You will change the course of history in terms of your deliverance of science fictional concepts to authorship. Oh, Dr. Michael Knight. Sorry, I'm terrible. I don't think it's that good a book. I think I might give up on it. No, Mary Shelley, I am now telling you, as a man from the future, I give a blessing to your book. So now you must write it because I give approval of what you have done. I am man from the future.
The misogyny there is amazing. Okay.
Right. Oh, Dr. Michael Knight. Sorry. Trying to make this history. Oh, Dr. Michael Knight. Not only have you validated what I was going to do probably anyway, but you've now given me an approval I didn't needed. But the approval, the weight and joy of the approval you've given me can only be matched by the filling of my vaginal void by your unbelievably satisfying cock. Well, I shouldn't do this, but if that's what it must take for you to write your novel, Mary Shelley, I shall fuck you gently in a gazebo. Ah! That's the scene.
Okay.
I'm sorry, but there is no other way to read this. Written.
Okay, so that
That's
does
what I'm
feel a
saying.
bit.
It's a little different than what you. Yeah.
Let's see. What year was this book written? Hold on.
I'm only slightly embellishing. It's
no. I just want to know the age of the publication dates. I want to know where the misogyny was at that point.
I think it's got to be his 50s or 60s. It has to be. Maybe
1973.
70s. Maybe 70s. Okay.
1973.
Yeah. And the thing is, here's the thing about it too.
Okay.
That changes the nature of it. And again, this is why I can't wait for you to read this and dissect it.
Yeah.
The technical level of the writing drops to George Lucas prequel writing, where I mean, he's talking in such flowery, overly soap opera romantic phrasing. I can't even remember, but the language being used feels like
Okay, so
two 14-year-olds who've been dating for 2 weeks, writing Romeo and Juliet, and they're focusing on the love scene.
Yeah, so my perception of Brian Aldiss was a very sort of working man's writer. Like, it's not that I don't think of him as an amazing writer, but he was a good writer, right?
Yes,
he had a
I
career,
agree.
He was good, but he wasn't like a great writer. You know what I mean?
Right. Sure.
And I was never wowed by his concepts.
Oh,
right?
well, that's...
And to be honest with you, right? If you were going to find a group of men who were particularly good with women, I think that you wouldn't start with science fiction writers.
No, I agree.
Because a lot of us, I put myself in that group, we're nerds. Now, I am a weird case in that I had... But you know what? I wasn't a weird case. I've always been weird with women. I think sci-fi writers in general, like the nature of being a nerd, right? Actually, really quick, my wife asked me the other day if I was ever going to get words tattooed on my knuckles, like what I would get tattooed, because my tattooist has "dead sexy" on his knuckles, which he did as a joke, right, for his wife. And I think it's very funny. And I was laughing about it because I would never do that. But if I ever did, I told my wife I would get nerd rage tattooed across my knuckles.
Sure.
I think that adequately describes me. But yeah, nerds are not known for being good with, relationships, good with...
and that's fine.
Yeah,
that's
so like
fine. It's
you have
the
to
compounding
accept,
of it with the writing that drops to this
you have to
juvenile
you have
level.
and you get that. I mean, that's the thing. There's a lot of like golden age stuff that's like that, where you read it and you're like,
right,
oh man,
but
I'm a man, and
yes.
yeah, I mean,
but here's the thing about it.
Yeah, you do cringe. Yeah.
Well, I was laughing honestly at it. I was just like, this is ridiculous. If this was a writer that I knew to do things like prank, the way this book then shifts at the end would almost seem like that was a setup, because at that point,
does he bang Frankenstein's bride?
No. I'm gonna get to
Sorry. That's immediately where my brain went. You're like,
no. I
could
could see that, but no, it goes in a completely different, horrific direction. But so for the 75% of this book,
he gets banged by Frankenstein's monster.
No. No, he doesn't. But so when you're reading stuff like this, again, an older style of writing and some questionable scene choices and relationship interactions, it makes you think that the rest of the book is going to be a bit slight. That okay, I've this far in the book, I'm reading all this stuff, I kind of know what I'm getting here. And that was kind of where I got to, because this is through.
Sometimes, yeah.
Well, I was for what the reviews had seemed to suggest, which are not always right, but that's what I had.
This is what I thought was going to happen. Yeah.
In a comparison to the movie, which fun, but certainly not groundbreaking underground stuff that should have a place in the Academy somewhere. I was like, okay, this is going to be a fun but very forgettable type of thing. I really didn't expect to hit a part of it that made me stop for a minute because I was shocked at how savage it got. So it's bopping along, like I said, fairly lightweight.
Yeah. And honestly, the fact that it was lightweight up to that point probably made it so much worse.
That's what I'm saying. To the point where if it was a different type of writer, I would expect it to be architected like this. And maybe secretly it was. I'll give him the benefit.
You know what?
Maybe.
I wonder if he was in one mood when he wrote most of it, and then he got to a certain point in the book, and then like something awful happened to him, and he was like, "Fuck this shit!" and just went dark.
Or what he was interested in was in terms of writing this part. So it gets to the point where Frankenstein has been told by the monster that he has to create a bride. And so that's the part in the movie where they get to his tower and he's got the car, and the car ends up being like the supercharger that changes. Okay. So they get to the tower. So it largely unfolds the same.
By the way, I'm just telling you right now, foreshadowing. they are totally going to do that in a Fast and the Furious movie before they're done.
Oh, probably.
They're
I hope so.
They're definitely going to bring someone back from the dead.
Oh, I hope Furious Unbound is the last movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they'll CGI Paul Walker to be alive.
Oh my God, that fucking Vin Diesel drives so fast he goes back in time like the Flash.
He time shifts on a nuclear powered car. Goes, is so fast.
Oh man, yeah.
Yeah. No, of course. Why not?
Okay, so they got the car, the tower, got it.
So they're at the tower, and the scene unfolds very differently. So they're at the tower, and Michael Knight is in there, and he's having the same kind of similar argument to what the movie had, which was this argument about, what Frankenstein has done. And Frankenstein is very self-absorbed, as he was in the movie, and says, I am basically mastering life and death. I am that, and then it takes a turn in two different directions, but simultaneously, that were not really present in the book like this. Then it becomes a religious book on one side, where Frankenstein is now saying that I will destroy God by becoming the creator of life. And even though the monster is forcing me to create the bride, by creating the bride, I will now have created man and woman. Therefore, God is irrelevant, and we don't need him anymore. And that then causes... So in the course of this, Michael Knight is determined to stop him from making any more monsters. So he drugs him and knocks him out and goes up to his lab to see how far he's gotten. And this is the point where the book unloaded on me in a Clive Barker way that I would not have seen coming. The level, the gore chamber, which is the only description I could come up for with what the lab is.
Yeah.
It is literally, I want you to imagine, do you remember back in the 90s?
That's great. The pit. He was in the pit. Yeah.
Do you remember in the 90s when McFarlane did all those really gory kind of Universal, where it was the twisted Universal Monsters figures where they were all like hyper. Yeah. Okay. And a lot of them were gore and Tim Burton-y and that type of thing.
Yes.
I want you to imagine that you gave your child, your daughter, a dollhouse or a playhouse, a Barbie playhouse or whatever. And the bottom level was what you would expect out of Malibu Barbie's playhouse. It's, retro and slightly misogynistic, but kind of a classic thing with the Corvette and the whole thing. And then when you open the top level, it's the McFarlane fucking version with that shit. That's what this fucking book is, except in the house version, it would be 2 floors that are Barbie and 1 floor gore chamber.
Okay.
His descriptions of what is in this lab are almost from a different book. They are Clive Barker-esque in their gore and graphic nature, where he's talking about there are women's torsos that are hung from hooks and flayed open to study. But the rest of this book has none of this. There's nothing of this level of horror.
Kind of fascinating, I guess. Yeah.
It's Event Horizon kind of shit. You know the images that flash that are famously got lost? It's that. And not one page. It's multiple pages as he wanders through seeing this dissection showcase that Frankenstein has. And then he sees that there's a body under a cloth. And then he's talking about, I honestly, I have to reread this because I don't, some of the shit he was saying was like human centipede type shit, where apparently, I think on the monster, he put the penis on the leg for some reason to urinate from, because it was more efficient and allowed more muscle in the pelvic area to enable him to be stronger. Like, that kind of shit is going on in here. Like, described. And my jaw was open.
Like, hold on. Like, where on the leg?
On his thigh. That he rearranged parts.
So it's hanging off the thigh.
Yes. And I the only thing I wasn't clear on is
how the hell do you do anything with that?
Man, I don't know. But wait, there's more to come. There's lots more to come.
Now I'm confused because like
I wish I had the book in front of me. I could go and find the page.
I know. No. Just for a moment. Like I'm trying to stretch the logic on that. Like why?
Well, because he's doing things.
You'd have to like fuck sideways with your leg, like. You almost have to do like a Elvis Presley dance.
Well, the way it's described is that everything he's doing is to maximize physical power. Like
okay, I
in
see.
some way.
Yeah. So he moved the reproductive organs because he could put more power.
Yeah, because
into,
then he's talking about in The Bride, he gave her like a double pelvis and these massive Chun-Li like thighs and shit like that, where because again, it would allow for more muscle mass.
Who is he making this bride for again?
No, because okay. So then he takes the tarp off the woman.
Yeah.
And the woman is the girl who got hung.
Oh.
Yeah. Yes.
So where is Frankenstein's girlfriend?
Well, that's who the monster is threatening. So it is not that. So he went and got the girl who he knew
so his girlfriend never gets it.
No, never. Nope.
Wow.
She's never there. And it's strange because she's portrayed in the book as a grade A bitch. I mean, she is a mean-spirited and tempestuous beast of a woman to Dr. Michael Knight, where it would be logical that in the logic of the book, she would be turned into or killed. No, she's fine. So he took the woman.
So Frankenstein's girlfriend is a bitch.
Yes. Sorry.
Yeah,
yes.
okay.
Elizabeth is the bitch.
Yeah.
So the woman that Frankenstein knew was unjustly killed for the act of his monster murdering his younger brother, he makes into the bride. And honestly, at that point, I knew I loved this book because it was somebody smacked me in the face with a baseball bat when I was looking right and they hit me from the left. Because I never in a million fucking years would have predicted this ending to this book.
You're like, okay, we're going this way now. Okay.
I mean, and then he's describing, there was something about, he gave her some kind of super womb because the monster is so overpowered, almost like the Superman Lois Lane thing from Mallrats type of deal. But the way he described, this woman would be like Godzilla in the new movie, where the bottom of her would be super jacked and wide and the top of her. But then he says that she has these huge breasts to be able to nurse this super baby. But not attractive. They're functional.
You know what? Listen. As a homework assignment, you should try and actually draw.
Draw it. I know. I had that thought. I'm like, what would this look like?
Because remember, in American Psycho, there was a big thing in American Psycho where if you actually stop and pay attention to how people are dressing in the book, it's absurd.
Right.
Like they're wearing absolutely absurd outfits, and it's meant to be absurd.
Yeah.
But if you just kind of breeze through it, you don't realize that they're dressing like, I mean, they are practically clownish in some of the ways they dress. It's supposed to be so over the top. So it's like, yeah, I wonder if this description is almost like him just going off the fucking, going over the edge.
Maybe. Now, so then as he's standing there, the monster comes in. Now, the monster had been absent, like I said, for most of this book. And the one time it had shown up before, we didn't get a good description of what it looked like. Now we do. Now, I can't do it any justice because this is, again, it's almost a counterbalance from how juvenile the love scene was written to how well this is written, because the descriptions.
I mean, honestly, that might just not be all this is. I'll give you a great example, actually.
Maybe this is what he was interested in.
No,
this
hold
is
on
his
one
thing.
second. What's it called? I think it's Greg Bear. Is it Greg Bear? Does the blood music? Okay, so so there's a book I read called Blood Music by Greg Bear.
I think I read that one too. I think I did.
And it's like there's a virus that's like changing people, and they don't know what it's doing to the children, all this shit, right? So most of that book is very scientific. It's very hard science fiction, right? They're getting into like the science of the cells, and like it gets almost a bit science textbook, right? But then at one point, two of the lead characters get together, and it becomes like they're driving back to another city, and she's like, I want you to fuck me in every city that we stop in. She's like, I want to feel you in my womb. I want you to put a baby in me. And you're reading it and you're like, whoa, like where the fuck did this come from? Like this whole book has been so like hard science and logic and what's going on with this. And then all of a sudden the leads get together and it becomes this very like juvenile, over the top romance on PCP scene. And I I spoke to some other people who kind of knew Greg Bear's material, and they're like, this is just not his area. Like, he's great at the hard science, but he feels like he needs to have like a love story in his book, but he has no idea what the hell he's doing. And so when you read his book, you're like, the hard science is great, but then like all this stuff over here is kind of weird, because there's authors that are great at the love and not so good at the science, you know. So this isn't actually that weird. I wonder if Aldous is just bad with like human male female relationships, but he's great at the rest of this, because you say the descriptions are excellent, right? Once he gets into all this horror shit.
Yeah, no, they're great. They're really good. And so, okay, so the creature bursts in.
Yes.
And this is and now the creature, again, we haven't seen much of it.
So the creature comes in with his big horse cock hanging off his thigh.
No, that's the funny part, is that never comes back up. It's only in that part where he's wandering through and seeing all these anatomical drawings and descriptions of how he's going to build creatures and all this stuff. So Frankenstein, the scientist, is asleep or knocked out on the floor below. There's an assistant who I was sure was going to be Igor, but his name is Yet, which is a terrible name to have in a book because it's very fucking confusing. When you start a sentence off with the word Yet and it's a person's name, not a description of what's happening. So that annoyed me. But that guy dies so quickly it doesn't matter. So, monster bursts in, and we get the description finally of what the monster is. The monster is huge, which to be expected. So Hulk-like size. And he describes the face as what you would expect if somebody took a skinned face and stretched it over a helmet. Like,
yeah, that's a good description.
It's a great, and he's talking about how the eyes are basically like cut slits, and so is the mouth, almost like tears from a hook. So they're all pulled and weird, so you can't tell what the expression. Like I said, this part is great, and I'm glad it came at the end, because I don't give a shit about the rest.
Yeah, I wonder if he's just better at the.
But even further, then he goes on to describe the general aspect of the creature, which generally we don't get in a lot of books like this. Where, yeah, you'll hear about the horrific visage maybe, but not much past that, right? Everything else is always big and muscular. Then he describes the fact that the monster never, which makes sense, really, with what the monster is, has never bathed, doesn't care about anything. His clothing is so caked with mud and literal shit that it is dry textured to his thighs, which are immense. So the top of his body is loose with the shirt and everything and stained, but then the bottom is caked to him because he doesn't care about cleaning himself
so
or what he's in.
He's a wild animal.
Yes, but it's this wonderfully descriptive monster. And then he starts talking. And he talks about the fact that it's very similar to the movie, where it's very philosophical, where he says, my creator gave me feeling only for me to know suffering. Like stuff like that, where it's, you understand the misery of this creature's existence. And so the anger and the violence
honestly
makes
it just
sense.
sounds like he needs a shower. Really is what it is.
Needs a shower, but also the book that he most formed his personality on, Paradise Lost by Milton.
Oh god.
So yeah, he's talking about the fact he refers to himself as the fallen, that Frankenstein is God, and this is what he has done to him. And like, it's fucking psychotic. And he's quoting verse from Milton about, it's magnificent because it is such a well-formed creature comparatively to a lot of other. I mean, I love the one in the movie, but this one is far more horrific. And then he's saying things which, because he thinks that Michael Knight was trying to kill Frankenstein. So he starts to kill him. And Michael Knight says, I didn't kill him, but I understand that you may kill me anyway. He says, I don't really know why you would, though, since you spared me once. And the monster says, what do you mean? He says, well, you brought me at one point, there's a whole prison sequence that makes no sense in this book. That's why I skipped right over it. But at one point, Michael Knight is kind of injured and he's out in the forest and he's about to die. And you realize later the monster brings him a dead rabbit to eat so that he will survive. And he says, well, the monster says something along the lines of, I saw a pitiful creature and I took pity on you or something. And Michael Knight says, well, thank you for that. And the monster stops and says, are you expressing gratitude as I'm about to kill you? And he says, yes, despite what you're doing now, you showed mercy to me. And the monster says, no one in my life has ever been grateful for anything to me. And he kind of doesn't let him go, but then he stops strangling him to death. He starts just dragging him along to go downstairs to see if Frankenstein is dead. Which again, little stuff like this, I eat this shit up. Like I'm not expecting any of this out of this book at this point. So he drags him down the stairs, which sounds as horrible as a large person dragging you around a house where he's like slamming him all because he doesn't care, but he's just not going to actively kill him, but he's not trying to help him. And so he looks, and Frankenstein he thinks is dead, but then realizes is actually just knocked out. And then Yet, the assistant, comes in with a blunderbuss and fires at them. Hits the monster, which doesn't really hurt him, but the monster then thinks that has killed Frankenstein because he thinks he was hit. So then he tears off and he fucking shreds Yet to pieces. And in the meantime, Michael Knight escapes and runs out of the building and then kind of hides nearby and is trying to get his car activated so that he can blow it up and blow up everybody in the building, but he can't manage it. He can't do it. And so then, he realizes, well, if I can't do anything to them, I'm going to wait and see if I have a chance to get in to do something. I'm going to wait for somebody to leave, or if I have a chance to shoot the gun at them, whatever, something. And what he sees is after a long amount of time, he's kind of just getting tired because nothing's happening for a while, at which point the monster and the bride come out and they start dancing in this moonlight scene where the two of them are, they're dancing around each other and they're starting to go crazy. And then there's a point where the monster tears her clothing off and it seems like he's going to rape her because she's resistant. But then it turns out, and again, a little bit of projection here, then it turns out that she's just playing hard to get, that she actually likes the rough stuff. I'm not exaggerating. And so they have this wild sex scene in the moonlight right in front of Michael Knight. And then they...
Oh, God. And I'm sure the descriptions on that are fucking horrific. So,
delightful. So luckily it's short. So then they bound off into the wherever.
Old horsecock and her super womb. Got it.
Yes.
So
then Michael Knight runs into the lab with his gun, finds Frankenstein, and Frankenstein is like, what have you done? And then they get into this huge argument about God and religion and all this stuff. And Frankenstein's like, fuck God, I am God, I've abolished God. And Michael Knight is saying, you have to help me track them. We have to kill them. Don't you understand what they will do? If they procreate, now you have a race of monsters. And they have no affection for humankind because of you. And Frankenstein's like, no. We don't need to chase them. I'll make a third one that will go and kill them both. And what? Michael Knight's like, what? It was so.
Yeah, I'll make it really good at killing things. You'll see.
Yeah, he's like, I'll fix all the shit I got wrong. I mean, the classic insane response. None of this is in the movie. At this point, we've completely gone away from the movie. So again, I'm not expecting when he says, I'll make a third one and I'll fix all the problems. And Michael Knight's like, fuck you, and blows his head off. It's so great. It's the whole way because again, at this point, my brain is spinning around in my face because none of this is what I was projecting. I thought it was going to largely or partially follow the ending, but none of this, and especially when he says, I'll make a third one, it's almost a goddamn Mel Brooks line. When he says the third one, I'll make a third one and it'll get it right. It's just like no rational, sane person.
Like Frankenstein's gonna make xenomorphs in an attempt to stop Frankenstein's monster and
after Michael Knight has wandered through fucking Caligula's goddamn Unit 451 lab, where it looks like Hitler and the Japanese scientists went on a bender with human experimentation, and this guy's gonna get it right the third time. Fucking no way. You know, so it's, and then when he just goes, yeah, nope, and blows his head off, I'm like, yep, that's the rational decision. There is no bringing this motherfucker back to the edge.
Like, here you go. It was a moment of logic.
Oh, man. So then he climbs into the car, which I will remind you has a super Vulcan cannon on the top, and he starts tearing off in the wintry whatever to chase the monsters.
Oh, wow. So he's gonna Michael Knight them with the car.
Well, this is like the ending where John Hurt is in the wilderness searching for the monster. So now it's back to following the movie, at least superficially. But now he's chasing the two of them. And because of their super ability or whatever, they're way ahead of him. Like, they've gotten such a jump on him somehow that it is.
Well, he was arguing religion with a psychopath for a while.
He was, yes. He was arguing for a while with a nutcase before extinguishing his life. And so now he's chasing after them in the car. And then after a while, the car breaks down or becomes something, so he has to switch to a horse. But he pulls the gun off. So he's hauling around this goddamn,
around a Vulcan cannon.
Yeah, this Vulcan cannon. And he's got that where he's got it, and he's hauling it. And then he sees that, they were on horses, so he's tracking them for a while.
Oh,
and then he arrives.
Hold on. So Frankenstein's monster's riding a horse.
Frankenstein's monster and bride are on horseback, and now is Michael Knight with a Gatling gun.
How could she wrap her giant Godzilla legs around a horse? How big are these horses?
The thing is, they say that they had 4 horses, so was she straddling 2 horses? I don't know. I don't know what the fuck was going on. Honestly, it doesn't matter. The visuals are better than anything he would describe at this point, I guarantee. Or maybe not. I don't know. After that last shit, maybe he could have done better. So finally it gets to a point where he reaches the super city, and he's looking at the city.
So we're in the future now.
Well, because some parts are. So this is one of those. The city he describes is not necessarily futuristic, but it seems like there's no computers or anything described that I remember. Okay. So I don't know if it was just an advanced city of its time or what. But it seemed. But the thing he says is that there doesn't appear to be that they were accepted into the city. So he doesn't go into this city. He says, what kind of city would accept these people? And there are time shifts happening all throughout this. So he says, is this a city where they actually reproduced? So if I go in there, will this be a city full of monsters that know who I am and will kill me on sight? Because the monster wanted to kill him and just couldn't find him. So I think what was supposed to have happened is as he was chasing them, time was advancing and advancing and advancing. And so there's every possibility, but it's never confirmed, that this city was made by the monster's progeny. It's just unclear because time slips.
Through many years of basically monster incest.
Sure. Or they found a future city, destroyed everybody in it, and took it over. Who the hell knows?
Okay.
So he avoids the city, and he finds that they had left at some point. But that's where he's like, well, they allowed them in, and they allowed them to leave. They don't look like they were chased, or they obviously weren't killed. No normal human beings would accept these people. They're fucking monsters. So is this a city of monsters? But I like the fact that we don't know. We never find out. So he finally sees them on the horizon. And at this point, he's basically on foot dragging this fucking cannon with him. And they're all basically, they're tired. And why they're still running is unclear unless they think he's hunting them, which I guess is what we're supposed to infer, is that they still knew that he wanted to kill them both. But if they were in a city of their own kind, would they not have defended themselves? Or something happened. Who knows? It's, again, vague, but I'm fine with that. So he sees the two of them, and he pulls the cannon up and unloads, including, as he describes, tracer rounds, and fucking disintegrates the bride in like a flaming gore explosion, where she just disintegrates into sinew and bone and muscle flying everywhere on fire.
That's a lovely word. I hope that's word of the year.
I hope so too. So then he catches up to the monster after he gets him with a couple of the rounds, but then I think the cannon is either too heavy to lift or runs out of rounds. So now he's just down to his handgun. So he catches up to the monster, who is gravely wounded, shoots him a bunch more times to mortally wound him. And then as he's dying, like the movie, he has this whole death speech where he says, you killing my creator, my bride, and me is going to be more monstrous for you than any life I would have led. You will be more haunted by me in death than you ever were in life. All we were doing was running from you in life. Now you are responsible for my death. And he says, now that I am unbound, I will haunt you, just like the movie. And then the end of it is that basically Michael Knight collapses Thing style in the snow and says, now I will wait to see that if who comes for me is here to kill me or help me. And the book ends. So he's just in the snow with the bodies and the blood everywhere, waiting to see what comes from him, or he'll die of the exposure.
Exposure, yeah.
Yeah, and the book ends. And I was like, fuck it, this book saved itself
Jesus
big
Christ.
time.
I'm kind of sad it didn't end with a train just sliding up into the snow.
And Dracula jumps out and says, it's your kids, Joey. We got to get your kids. Because his name's Joe Baudelaire in the book. It's your kids, Michael Knight. We got to save your kids.
We got to eat your kids, probably.
I'm going to kill them after we save them, but we got to save them or I'll never be born. Let's go.
I'm going to eat your kids.
Gets out with a fucking conductor's cap on. It's goddamn Bela Lugosi with a goddamn conductor hat. It says, let's go. I hope the train has a cape. That's all I hope for, is that the train has a fucking cape.
Lord, yeah, he really went.
Which makes me wonder what the Dracula book is. Like, now I'm actually legitimately, I can't wait to tear into this fucking thing. Because I shit you not. Until the part where he gets to the lab, I was prepared to say, this is an okay book if you like a little bit older science fiction. There's nothing here that's really going to impress you all that much, but it's certainly not terrible. And it's, a light enough read. And then it shoved its fucking face and asshole into a bucket of blood and shit out an entrail stream of farts that you would never expect. I mean, it was just fucking bonkers. It was great. So, cannot highly enough recommend this son of a bitch. It's that good. But it almost does, I would not have called you a liar if you said that this was, how Douglas Adams never finished the Hitchhiker's book and somebody else finished it?
If I told you it was an unfinished book?
If you told me that Aldris, I think it's Aldris, that Aldris had died at the point where he got to the lab, literally the part where he's about to open the door, he died. And that manuscript was given to Clive Barker or Stephen King. And they said, we need you to spiffy this thing up for a modern audience. And they're like, he's about to walk into Frankenstein's lab. Don't worry. We'll handle it from here. And went fucking berserk. It's great. Now, it's not bad. But I almost hate to even have done this entire synopsis, because now you have to go for a while without all this. But it is this lead up to this just literal 25%. I looked at it. It was at 72 or 3% is when this happens into the book, according to the Kindle, is when the lab thing happens. And up to that point, there's virtually not even blood, really. I mean, I think when in the prison break, I think his arm gets trampled or something. But again, nothing of the viscera, no explanation of no description of the monster itself. It's largely philosophical debates and overly flowery weirdo romance stuff. And, this weird prison break segment in the middle.
And then
it takes a Ford truck bed full of screaming children and dumps him into a fucking fan, and it goes nuts. And that's what the ending is. And it's glorious. I mean, it really rivals anything else I've read in terms of horror because of what it follows and how descriptive it is. I mean, it's really something. So
I'm glad that it didn't let you down.
It really didn't. I was fully prepared to say, this is an okay book. But when the ending hit, now it's, like I said, I want you to read it from the writing side, because I really will be very curious what your read on how this thing is put together is. But anybody else, that ending it is outside of the original book, it is the best Frankenstein I've ever read. Period. I would actually genuinely love Mike Mignola to illustrate this book, because even the ordinary parts would be nice to look at, so that would enhance it. But then, or Guillermo del Toro would, but the problem is Guillermo del Toro wouldn't have the restraint in the first 75%. You almost have to have that boring part to emphasize how off the rails, Dracula Unbound, the ending is. Because it is very classic, straightforward. Even the sex scene with him and Mary Shelley, it's described in a very chaste way. It's just, our nude bodies were in the sheets as the flower of our passion spread. Yeah, that's all it says. It's not like, he didn't chew her tits off or anything. So it's all written very straightforwardly.
Honestly, I'm more curious about the Frankenstein's monsters weird.
I should have brought the damn thing in here to read.
No, you know what? I don't, because now I have something to look forward to.
Yeah, and that's just one part of it. There's a whole bunch of stuff about all the stuff he reconstructed and moved around, because he was talking about, literally it was to try to build. It's, and you just think about it from Frankenstein's perspective. You sort of get it in his mania, that in his quest to conquer God, which is what it is. That's what it is. In his quest to, because he's talking about how he's made religion irrelevant, and now that he has done this, once he's able to show people he's done it, then mankind will throw all of religion and superstition away. And, to him, it is a holy quest. You understand that it's not just a lunatic. There is a point to what he's doing. But that then informs these descriptions, because it is not enough to conquer death. He has to then make a superior version of, quote unquote, God's creation. You see what I'm saying? He has to not only knock God down, he has to take a pair of boots with spikes on the bottom and sever his fucking head by pushing them through his throat into the dirt.
He's got to rub it in.
Rub it in. He's got to punch it through God's neck and then make him drink his own shit. That's what Frankenstein is. That is literally what he wants to do. He wants to hold up God's body, make him excrete, and then have his severed head underneath to catch what comes out. That's what this character is, which is great, because, again, so much of this, the little philosophical stuff is good. There are the back and forth that Frankenstein and Michael Knight have, and they're consistently good. I mean, that's clear. That's one of those things where you'll see it and you'll be like, okay, this is one of the things he wanted to focus on. The tension between science and religion. That's clearly a focal point. Stripping all the stuff away, Aldrich was clearly trying to architect some kind of viewpoint on religion and science, and how I think his goal was to say they have to be balanced. There has to be a spiritual, if not necessarily religious, there has to be a spiritual component to society as well as a scientific one. That if you go too far one way or another, you have a problem. Which, on balance, I'm not necessarily saying is wrong. But the person who's pro-science has gone way over the line, which is Frankenstein. And then Michael Knight has this religious experience in the face of the horror of uninhibited science. And he rediscovers God and says, you cannot have a society that has no spirituality, which, stripped away from organized religion, not necessarily,
Yeah, you can't have a society with no rules.
Right, because he says, and this is not an inaccurate argument, that if you don't have something beyond science, that anything that is not scientific is discarded, and that can lead to bad places. And he's right. So that's what I'm saying, is you can see that there are deeper themes at work. So I like all that stuff, and that's consistent. But like I said, much of it comes across as very, I don't want to use the word safe, but restrained. And then you get to the fucking lab, and it just goes fucking crazy. And it's almost like he was holding himself back. He's like, okay, maybe because at the time, the standards of writing and the way that things were judged, he's like, I have to present this in a certain way, and I have to wear the tie and the nice white shirt.
No, honestly, he was probably. It's better to make the reader wait for it, and then to just like get to that penultimate moment, because like it's got to be in the back of your mind. Frankenstein's lab is out there. I mean, you've met Frankenstein. At some point, you're gonna meet his lab, right? So you're waiting for it. I mean, it's the money shot of the book, essentially, where you finally get in and you're like, oh my God, no, Frankenstein is the monster.
Yes, and this is the thing, is the rest of the book, because the monster is absent for so much of it. And because what we have instead feels much like a classic science fiction film where you don't have gore or sex. What you have is talking scenes in labs that are very clean labs with giant glass balls that have electricity that go zzz, zzz, zzz. And that's what you think it will be because the rest of the book feels like that kind of science fiction novel. And so the expectation is the classic movie lab, which is, there's some cobwebs and spiders and Igor's weird looking, but everything else is giant electrical switches and glass tubes. There's nothing horrific about it whatsoever. Even Frankenstein is not all that, I'm talking about the classic Universal Frankenstein, is not all that horrific, really. He's Herman Munster, except they're not playing it for laughs. He's got a couple bolts, he's got some stitches, and one of his eyes is a little funky and his head's flat, but he certainly doesn't seem all that scary until he throws a little girl in the fucking lake, and then you're like, oh shit. But, he's not that scary in himself. What he represents, what Frankenstein did, yes, that's horrific. But the monster himself could just be a deformed large man.
Yeah,
he's not necessarily...
This monster is monstrous.
Right. But you don't get that until after he's already in the lab.
Yeah. And the bride is monstrous.
Yes. Yeah. And that she doesn't reject him, as again happened in the classic version, is always that the bride rejects him.
The fascinating thing is that they run from him.
Yeah.
And they keep running from him.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that whole thing where he's like, well, you're killing me. I was running from you, but you're killing me. Well, I'm unbound. It will haunt you forever. And I'm kind of like, will it? Will it? Because if anything, he has stopped unchecked science.
I apologize. There is one thing I left out that would lend credence to what the monster says. During the pursuit, Michael Knight is plagued by nightmares of killing Frankenstein, the killing him, shooting him. And he's nightmaring about it constantly, like trauma, almost PTSD. He has PTSD of killing
before
Frankenstein.
He kills him.
No, after he kills Frankenstein.
Dr. Frankenstein. He's playing the moral judgment.
Every
of
night he dreams of this nightmare vision of killing Victor Frankenstein and then wakes up terribly.
Oh, that's a shame because that honestly, it's the one right thing he did in the book.
Well, it is, except it's the morality thing. So it's the idea that, is there any, especially for someone who just found God, is there ever a right
I'll
time
make
to kill
another
someone?
one. It's okay.
Right.
Third monster will fix everything.
And let's not forget, he still pursued the monsters. So so either he accepted the burden and the monster is right, or the monster is deluded and he's going to sleep real well. But it doesn't seem like he is because he's getting these nightmares. I'm sorry, I did leave that part out. So in that, I think that's part of the reason the journey goes on is to emphasize the fact that he is haunted by killing Victor Frankenstein.
Haunted, I tell you. Haunted.
And not to mention that and they don't really seem to dwell on this, although I wish he had a little bit, is he doesn't seem to hesitate about killing the bride who has the face of the girl that he was trying to save. But he does say something like, well, at some point that, yes, I know it's not her anymore. But still, I would have liked the moment where he hesitated.
I wonder if that's just to make it even more fucked up. That's all.
Maybe. But there is that consideration. Because that's completely absent from the movie. There's none of that.
It is that fucked up, yes.
It is. It's fucking crazy. So, like I said, I think if you enjoy my rambling reviews of stuff and you key in it all on the type of weird shit I enjoy, you want to read this book. That's all I'm going to say about it. I mean, I've already said plenty. There's no more to say. It delivered at the right time, which was at the end. So if you're gonna have either a strong opening or a strong ending, when you
were ready for things to not work, suddenly it came in and it worked.
Yeah, I mean, and to a point where, again, because that love scene is so goddamn infantile. That to have this really layered and visually rich description of this monster and the lab is so out of nowhere, but it's great. So that's it. I have nothing else to review because of that. I'm like, no, that's it.
Sure,
I gotta talk about that.
No, I'm sure at some point you're gonna read Dracula Unbound.
Oh, I am, but I gotta let this one sit in my head for a little bit.
I need time to digest it.
No, it's like eating a really good dessert. You just want to taste that for a while. You don't want to just jump to Listerine. You want to be
never read books back to back. Always give the first book time Give it some space. I try to put a book between every good book I read.
I might make it the book that Dead Ringers is based on, which I didn't know it was based on a book, but apparently it is, so I'm going to read that, I think. Because it might be this shit again. Maybe I'll think it's going to be Cronenberg, and it's going to be, I don't know what. So, I didn't realize that movie was based on 2 real people, too. So I was like, oh, okay.
Something. It'll be something.
It'll be something.
So.
And that's it. So, what was the first that got? Go watch Kroll. Because Kroll's great.
Wait, hold on. Go watch Kroll. Go watch
Cyborg 2.
Cyborg 2.
Eliminators, good luck. Get it. Buy a leather vest.
If you can find Eliminators, right?
Yep. Watch
and then put on your leather vest and watch Warriors and what was it? Was it El Mariachi and no Mariachi?
Sure.
He was
Desperado.
Desperado. Watch Desperado and then
watch El Mariachi as well, but he's not. That's not what
and then go on to read a really fucked up book.
And then read Frankenstein Unbound. And if you do all of those things, I guarantee you a great weekend. So I look forward to the emails from people who do exactly that and say you were correct. I did everything right. And I'll read those on the next show. So look forward to that. Other than that, have a great weekend. We'll talk to you next week. Visit OzoneNightmare.com to subscribe to new episodes, browse through our back catalog, or to find links to support the show. Follow @OzoneNightmare on Twitter for the latest episode postings and other show information. If 280 characters just isn't enough, you can always email us, theozonenightmare@gmail.com. The opening theme for the show is provided by Heartbeat Hero. The closing theme is provided by Ogre. Please visit and support these artists using the links in the show notes for each episode.